Hey, what's up? First up, stability. If you've been unlucky enough to experience hard crashes on specific machines, this is probably the part you care about. The patch addresses overheating-related crashes that were showing up on some 13th and 14th generation Intel systems, and the team also added a workaround for particular AMD hardware and driver combinations that were causing unexpected exits. That doesn't just mean fewer crash screens, it means less lost progress, fewer ruined co-op sessions, and fewer frantic restarts while you try to rejoin a friend. Developers noted the changes specifically targeted the crash conditions and driver edge cases, so players on affected builds should see a noticeable improvement. Network performance and online reliability got attention too. The update tweaks how packets are routed between the game and Epic Online services, which is what REANIMAL uses for its online functionality. The result is lower ping in many cases and fewer desync situations where what one player sees doesn't match what another player sees. That routing change is not a magical cure for every connection problem. The game still enforces a disconnection threshold around 300 milliseconds of ping to prevent extreme desync. But overall, matchmaking and session stability should feel smoother for a lot of people. Just remember that local network issues, ISP routing, and NAT types can still influence your experience, but the update removes one layer of variability that used to live inside the game itself. Now onto the fixes that matter for progress and immersion. Several softlocks that were causing playthroughs to halt have been addressed. One of the bigger ones was in the Opera House, specifically the tank section, where blocking geometry could fail to disable after reloading from a checkpoint and leave you effectively trapped. That sounded small in a patch log, but for anyone who hit it, it was a hard stop in their run. This patch ensures those blocking volumes behave properly after a respawn, so you can move on without having to try glitchy workarounds. Another tricky transition that could produce a black screen during the online tank to final sheep beast sequence has been partially fixed. The problem is rarer now, but the team flagged it as a partial fix because a couple of edge cases can still trigger it. There were also fixes in the overworld and puzzle areas that specifically target progression checks. In Forest Village, certain triggers could be bypassed in a way that prevented later events from firing, which left players staring at dead ends. That's been corrected, so the sequence of triggers is more robust and less prone to being skipped accidentally. The bunker puzzle had an especially frustrating scenario where solving the puzzle, leaving the area and then dying before the game registered your progress could lock you out of finishing the sequence. That's been fixed, so the game properly records progression even if you take a tumble immediately after solving the puzzle. Single-player runs got some love too. The barn area that could strip your movement controls after you entered has been patched, so you don't suddenly find yourself stuck and watching your character twitch. And finally, the Orphanage stacked beds room, where defeating the spider enemies didn't always unlock the area as it should. That's fixed now. These are the kinds of fixes that feel really good in practice because they remove frustration and restore the flow of play. There are a couple of known issues the devs called out, so you're not surprised if you still see them. Shader precompilation can take longer on certain older AMD chips, with the Ryzen 5 3400G called out as an example. So keep that in mind if you're patching and notice a slow start while shaders compile. And, as I mentioned earlier, connections above roughly 300 milliseconds will still be disconnected by design to protect session integrity, and some random disconnect reports from otherwise stable connections remain under investigation. The patch reduces a lot of the common causes, but doesn't eliminate every single possible network or hardware quirk, and the developers have been transparent about that trade-off. What makes this update meaningful for players isn't just the list of fixed items, it's the direction it signals. The team is prioritizing concrete reliability changes that directly impact both the single-player experience and cooperative runs. Whether you were getting interrupted by crashes, being bounced from co-op sessions, or running into invisible walls that stop progression, those scenarios are now far less likely. The changes aren't flashy, but they are the kind of behind-the-scenes work that makes the game feel more polished and less fragile. So that's the rundown. Stability boosts for specific CPUs, network routing improvements with measurable reductions in ping and desync, and several targeted softlock fixes that unblock progression in key areas. If you've been waiting for a patch to smooth out those rough edges, this one does a solid job of cleaning up some of the more painful missteps without changing the game's core design. Enjoy the smoother runs and fewer interruptions.